But as mentioned last week, the purpose of this class is mainly to find out what the Bible teaches on this topic of parenting. And it's because we all, as parents, want to do the right thing. We sense a need for help, but we run into so many different ideas and opinions on how to properly parent. So that's why we're trying to emphasize Scripture and then rely heavily on God's Spirit as we parent, because God's way is the instruction manual. That's the instruction manual for parenting. And so that's why we want very much to look there. Parenting systems and methods, as we mentioned, definitely there can be help in certain ways, but they will at some point either be insufficient or imperfect. So we're going to focus on Scripture, lean heavily on the Spirit, and then we can always supplement with other things. So the format again, just continue to watch a clip. I'll share a few things and then open up for a couple comments or a little bit of a discussion and see how much we can get through. So we'll start off.
When we were raising our kids, all 6 of them were still at home. One Saturday morning we woke up and we were still in bed trying to sleep in, which didn't happen very often.
Not often at all.
But we heard these little feet pattering into our bedroom. She climbed up onto the bed and sat there just so cute, looking at us. And we opened our eyes and looked at our sweet little 3-year-old daughter. And she was sitting on the bed and she had chocolate syrup all over the front of her t-shirt. Obviously, she'd been in the kitchen before she came up to our bedroom.
She had a sticker on her t-shirt that said "Shake Well." And what she must have done was taken a bottle of chocolate syrup.
Well, she got the sticker first because kids love stickers, but
yeah.
She clearly.
And so I said the child's name and I said, "Oh, you've been in the chocolate syrup, haven't you?" To which she went, and all of a sudden.
Yeah, both of us looked at each other and we went, oh my gosh, this was so cute. It was so sweet. It was so child fun. And we looked at each other and went, oh my gosh, it's now turned into a battle of the wills because she turned it into something that it didn't have to be. And we looked at each other thinking, oh my gosh, what are we going to do about this situation?
Yeah, so she ended up lying to us. And the scriptures speak clearly about that. Proverbs 22:15 says, foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. Some of that foolishness is childish behavior. Others is an act of the will, pushing back. And lying is one of those ways where a child pushes back against a parent. What our assignment is as parents is to develop our children's character to respond to authority. The authority of God, parents, other authorities they're going to encounter in their lifetimes, but also life's circumstances, to do life the way God designed it to be done.
Yeah.
So I thought this clip was important because it's so easy for us as parents to do this a lot. The temptation is to just shake it off, something that our kids do as cute, as long as there's a funny element to it or a funny aspect to it. But what we teach them in those situations is that, disobedience or lying or whatever it is isn't serious as long as we get some entertainment or a laugh out of it. In other words, our entertainment becomes a higher priority than our child's character. Because if they did the same thing and it wasn't funny or it was an inconvenience to us, then we probably would handle it differently or react differently. And the point is we need to do what's best for the child, not for us. To not focus on cuteness so much that we ignore the issue in the character. Like they were sharing, it was cute, it was funny, but it turned into lying. And it's a serious thing that you have to address. I think that you can appreciate both at times when those situations happen. And it reminds me of something that happened a few weeks ago where I was about to go off to work and my youngest daughter, Elsie, she's 4, at the top of the steps, she comes out and she has this huge blots of water all on her jeans, soaked at different spots. So she had clearly gone to the bathroom and got some, I don't know what she did, but she got it soaked, trying to wash them instead of put it in the wash. And I asked her, what happened? And she said, well, I wanted to match you, Daddy. Because she was wearing light jeans because I had light jeans on, the same kind of color. And she had been told for the last couple days, Karina had told her to put those jeans in the hamper. They need to be washed. So the temptation is just so adorable. She wants to match me, leave it as it is. But she had disobeyed. So we told her, you need to take them off, go put them in the wash, and hopefully it'll be done by the time I get back, and then we can match. But you run into those situations. You just want to make sure you don't gloss over the character issue. But yeah, Proverbs 22:15 says, "Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him." Bound up. That's the sin nature. It's bound. They're born with it. But there needs to be discipline. The rod of discipline. Sometimes discipline is the rod, and sometimes the rod itself is appropriate according to the situation. Proverbs 22:6. "Train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it." So when you think about your own life, how many of us would say that our upbringing had a big impact on who we are today? Well, of course. Whatever it is, the way we're raised, our childhood, our parents, they have a huge impact on who we become in life. And I think that's what it's getting at, is that what you instill and how you handle that when they're young. If you can train them, most of the time, they're going to not depart largely from the way that you brought them up. But yeah, what are some thoughts on that topic?
Sometimes it's hard to see that because I have teenagers, so there's like this extra layer of, I call it counter will,
Yeah.
And then you're also thinking you're trying to train them up on the way they should go, but you're also trying to figure out what other things are you training them on that you don't want. Like, what mistakes are you making in your parenting that's actually going to come back in a negative way in their life? That's always fun.
Yep.
To think about.
Yeah, as he also mentioned, part of teaching them to respond to a higher will than their own is just preparing them for the life as a Christian, that you have to get used to surrendering your will for one who's in a higher authority over you and has more wisdom than you. And that's what we're doing as parents, is preparing them for that, doing that their whole life, is to trust God and to yield to His will instead of their own. Okay, let's jump to the next, number 8.
And that's the hard part, is sometimes it feels so endless. It feels so repetitive. And yet that's what God calls us to do, because that's what He does with us. He is constantly training us, constantly correcting and helping us. And that's our assignment as parents, is to train our children in the same way that God trains us as His children.
Nothing was as exhausting as raising 6 children all the way through childhood to adulthood, but it's worth it.
How many of you thought that training and correcting and disciplining your child or children feels endless, repetitive? I mean, I think everybody nodded their head, just to let you know from this perspective. It does. And it can feel that way in a single day, as you know. But you think about it, man, we have to remember that is exactly what God does with us and for us, because He loves us. A parent who truly loves their children will not give up. They won't just, throw in the towel because it feels endless, because they know it's producing something good. There's going to be, after all this endlessness, you're keeping them from going in a direction that is going to be harmful for them. I mean, you look at who you are today as compared to who you were when you started as a Christian, you just believed. I mean, we can look back and see a lot of progress, but it's because it took God a lot of patience, His long-suffering, repeated training of us to help us to mature and to grow. And that's what our kids need from us, that endless patience. In 1 Corinthians 13:4-5, it says, "Love is patient and kind. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful." All of those can apply as parents. Ephesians 4:2, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love. Again, it's not specifically talking about parenting, this passage, the context, but certainly does apply. It takes humility, gentleness, patience to bear with our children in love at times. Galatians 6:9, and let us not grow weary of doing good. But it can be, exhausting. But don't grow weary. It's a good thing you're doing, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. And then one more, Romans 15:1, we who are strong have an obligation to bear with the failings of the weak. We as the parents in this situation are the strong, and we have to bear with their failings, and not to please ourselves, not just do what we want to do, but what's best for our children who are still weak and growing and developing.
I think about with those verses how it's kind of like just the environment in which we parent. The difference between correction when you're irritable and self-centered compared to correction when you're patient and gentle. It's like, I think I've seen it to where, that patience and gentleness, like the message can be heard a little bit better. Or if you tend to be patient and gentle, your kids might be a little bit more willing to, respond in a different way than if they know, whoa, like if I tell Dad this and he's just going to,
Right.
fly off
Yeah.
the handle.
Yeah, if we're always harsh, then we're playing a major part in them keeping a lot of stuff from us.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to bring it up. They know how we'll respond. Yeah.
I don't remember what it was that you put up there necessarily, but it hit me like something you said. I think as parents, because it is so hard and you feel like you're in a washing or dryer with like 7 pairs of sneakers all the time, I feel like it's helpful to hear it's going to be okay. You're doing the right thing. Keep going. But you don't hear that, verbally, right? And so it's like, it can be exhausting.
Yeah.
So just whether it's husband to wife or wife to husband or friends or whatever, it's just hear somebody. It's going to be okay. You're doing the right thing. It won't always be this way, or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's good to keep in mind.
I really like Proverbs 23, verses 12 and 13. It says, apply your heart to instruction and your ear to words of knowledge. Do not withhold discipline from a child. Now, I think the order here is really important. Listen to that. Apply your heart to instruction and knowledge. Then discipline your child.
Discipline is crucial, and the scripture talks about the parent that refuses to discipline in a way hates their child. And it says when you discipline your child, you'll save his soul from hell. And those are strong things to say. And so when you discipline them, it's a form of discipleship. You're teaching them this is right and this is wrong. It's a little bit of pain now that saves you greater pain later.
The sort of parenting philosophy that says you just discover with your children what they want to do is a good way to discover how not to raise children. They need boundaries. They need guidance. They need your discipline.
When I'm in Starbucks and some child is just creating mayhem in the place, and the mother's going, now there could be some timeouts here. The kid is like, yeah, sure.
I see many parents who don't want to discipline because they feel that saying no to their children is cruel. They see the word no as oppressive, restrictive, which of course it is, and it creates conflict in their relationship with their children. And a lot of parents bail on discipline because they don't want conflict.
So, of course, it's natural to not be a fan of conflict, but what happens is a lot of parents don't realize that when that's your goal as a parent, your kids will grow up very undisciplined, no structure, and they'll be a nuisance to everyone around them. And so in the end, you will have conflict with other people because of, your child having no discipline. And as the guy says at the start, I think he makes a very good point with that proverb that he quotes, is that we have to apply our heart to knowledge and our heart to wisdom first. Then we have the foundation in order to wisely apply and discipline our children appropriately. Because if we're not willing to be disciplined ourselves and kept in order by God's word and kept in order ourselves by prayer, then we're hypocrites to demand that from our children. And plus, by what standard are we discipling or disciplining them? Our own mood? Because if it's not God's word that we're spending time in, then it's just basically our mood. But to not discipline, kind of was mentioned, is a form of cruelty. It's saying, I don't want the inconvenience of disciplining you or having any kind of conflict right now, so I'm willing to let you basically, self-destruct later for my own convenience right now. Man, we're setting them on a course that's not going to be good for them at all, and they're really going to suffer for it later on. In Proverbs 23, 12, and 13 is the passage he quoted in the video. Apply your heart to instruction and your ear to words of knowledge. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you strike him with a rod, he will not die. Proverbs 13:24. Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. So you see those principles of discipline is absolutely necessary because of the benefit it does to the child over the long course of their life. Diligence, that's, feels endless, but we have to seek God for strength each day. Yeah, any thoughts, comments on that?
I think that battle of consistency, right, is some of what's going on there. That idea of just too tired or too, and so it's just easier to click on a little show or something and just distract compared to correct, or even taking the time to determine what would be appropriate. Is it conversation? Is it discipline? What kind of discipline? What needs to happen? And that's a hard thing. And then realizing it's for me, it's always I just did this, and then 10 minutes later, it's we got to do this again.
Right.
I just got home from work and barely got my boots off, and I'm right into it, and that makes it really hard then to choose to do that, and that selfishness just wells up, and I'm maybe I'll just go do something else, and let my wife take care of it, or something like that. But it's no, man, that consistency, I've seen it goes a long way in helping them to learn, whoa, maybe this isn't a good idea, or there's a better way, or...
Yeah, the kids learn too, because if dad's just going to escape, I can act how I want around dad or mom, or, they pick up on those things, and you're right, sometimes you're fully exhausted, and...
Yeah, come Sunday, I'm pretty spent, because it feels like, I'm working all week, and then the weekend comes, and then, all right, Dad's spending time with us, right? He's got all this time. But it's some weekends, it doesn't even feel like I'm spending time with him. It feels like I'm just a disciplinarian, right? That's all I'm doing. And then by Sunday, it's well, it's 4:30. It's about time to get ready for bed, just about having enough of dealing with them. And then to your point, it's by then you're letting certain things skate because you just emotionally spent, and it's can be difficult.
Kids like stability, and they need to know that mom means what she says and dad means what he says. They can rely on us and they can trust us. That builds them security, not insecurity.
It's important that we separate discipline from punishment. Punishment is what somebody deserves for their actions. But my question would be, is that how God deals with you and me? He could, but he doesn't, because he did that to his son in our place. Jesus took the punishment we deserved so that now all we receive from God is his discipline.
We need to be always equating and having it in our kids' minds that I do this because I love you, and I do this because the Lord's commanded me to. And I'm teaching you and preparing you for long-term success.
A child that believes my parent loves me is more apt to listen to them. to respond to them. If they question whether you love them or not, then they're more likely to reject the discipline or placate you with some behavior modification, only to end up doing the same thing anyway.
At the very beginning, the lady said that your kids need to know that dad and mom mean what they say. And I really think that is a need. That is a basic need for a child. That in everything, they can trust their parents. And that, goes with the promises as well as the warnings, in all of it. Now, of course, kids at times will hope that you don't follow through on something you say when it comes to discipline. But every single time that we don't follow through on our word, we're planting a seed that they can't trust us. And it's really important that they can trust us. And there's, again, that security which they may not even be aware of, but they know that when dad or mom says something, I know that that's something I can rely on. And then he also mentions punishment as opposed to discipline. Punishment is what we deserve. Discipline is what helps us learn. Punishment is what we deserve. Discipline is with the intent to help us learn. And the question is, what is the motivation behind our parenting? Is it giving your kid what he or she deserves? Or carefully applying pain or discomfort to help them learn something very valuable? And that's something in each situation. Okay, where's my heart in this? To give them what they deserve, or to, I really want you to learn this because it's valuable. And one other thought that came from that was, it's important that we actually, we do love our children. We all love our children, but sometimes they need to hear that. A few times I have said to my children, the Bible tells me to discipline my children, and so I have to, if I've told you and you disobey, so that they see I'm doing my best to follow God. I'm trying to follow the Bible, and then expressing also the love. It's easier for them to receive it, I think. So Hebrews 12:7-9. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is training you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? So it's expected. I mean, the Bible expects. It's just a given that we should be disciplining our children as parents. Besides this, we have had earthly fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father's spirits and live? So it's not only expected, it's respectful. It's a respected way to parent is to discipline. And, we as the older we got, we said, thanks, Dad and Mom, for disciplining me. Might not say it as a kid. Hebrews 12:10-11, for they disciplined us for a short time as seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. So it is for good. That's the purpose. And we lack perfect wisdom, obviously, but that's the whole purpose. We're trying to bring good out of this. The same thing that God does. And it points out it's pain now, but it's fruit later. That's the whole point, is looking forward to the fruit.
Just to clarify, because I'm a little lost on the difference between punishment and discipline. It's just a matter of the heart.
From the parent's perspective, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying you're going to be punished. Yeah, I mean, they under wrong done receives a consequence, but I think what's getting at is the heart and the motivation behind how we apply it. Are we applying it just to strictly to give them what they deserve for doing wrong or for bothering us? Or are we trying to use, because, Jesus takes all our punishment, so anything that comes into our life, it has a purpose for good. So are we parenting our kids with that mindset of, each time I apply it, my heart is, I really sincerely want you to, I'm carefully applying it only as much as necessary for this situation so that you'll learn this. Okay. Go to the next one here.
My two daughters, they were like day and night. we trained them very differently. One was a bit more defiant and the other was much more compliant. It was never one size fit both of them.
Our kids are so different. Our youngest, kind of call him the mascot of the family. He's never met a stranger, life of the party. If you want to get to him, send him in his room. Our middle son, Miles, is an introvert.
Yeah.
Sending him to his room is vacation. It's a holiday. So you just got to pick up on what are their bents, and there's different ways of accomplishing the same thing.
Yeah.
We had one kid that is stubborn as can be.
Yes.
Unbelievably stubborn. And he could debate and he could stand his ground. And I remember one time he had gone outside the boundaries and we were trying to, and he was debating me on it. And I stopped him. I said, you are really good at this. You are very good at this. Once God gets a hold of this, he can really use this.
Yeah, I think we all can relate to this, that our kid, when you have your first kid, you think, oh, okay, so that's what we produce. My spouse and I, when we have a child, this is what is the outcome, the personality. Then you have child number 2 and 3. Like, what? How are you all so different? So it's extremely important when it comes to discipline as well, because children are so different. There's no, as they mentioned, no one size fits all. Every child needs the same amount of sting in order to lovingly teach them not to repeat the wrong, the harmful way of acting. But what that sting is might be different sometimes. Not always. Some things sting kids all the same. But like the guy mentions, a lot of times as you learn their personalities, you realize some things aren't any discipline to them at all, or it hurts quite a lot depending on the kid's personality. But especially as they grow up, we need to pay attention to these differences. They start to come out more. 1 Corinthians 12:27 and 29. Now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it. Are all apostles, are all prophets, are all teachers, do all work miracles? God himself has a family, and we're all unique. We're all different. I think he can relate and understand that we have very different children at times, and we need to pay attention to those differences in the way we parent.
I know we remember reading this book. It was 1, 2, 3 Magic. Okay, It saved our life when he was 3, but we just we had to keep putting him back. No emotion.
Yeah, I've read that.
Well, I'm curious between the two of you, which one has the stronger will between the two of you? If you had to put him back without saying a word 72 times, that'd be you.
Oh yeah.
Then I would go for that,
What do you think my
I know. They cannot outlast me, and I've had to where we've gone through that so many, and then eventually they give up. But whichever one can endure it longer.
Well, good luck.
But that goes to your point, you have to have the time, right? You can take it all night long. You have to be I'm going to be here all night. But,
and I was just going to say, it's all about consistency, and oftentimes we have a 2-year-old that we want to give up before he's going to give up. We're just not we're okay, it's taking the time to do it over and over and over, because he is very strong-willed. He's a 3rd.
Yep, that's ours.
He's a wild child. He's
set him in
giving
his
us
crib
everything, but
just as a timeout. But then I'm I don't want him to think that his crib is a bad place.
That's
put him
exactly
somewhere
what I
else.
said, we don't do this
He's
crib.
certainly not going to stay in a corner.
Yeah, when if they know they can't outlast you, eventually they start to give up sooner. All right. Well,
As your children move through those toddler years, you've got to figure out, what am I going to discipline for and what am I not going to discipline for?
I think a lot of times as parents, we expect our kids to not be foolish and not be childish, and that's unreasonable. So, if your kid has a rope in his hand and he's swinging it around and hits his sister in the face, didn't you know that would happen? Well, no, they really actually didn't know it would happen.
With your kids, oftentimes they're doing things out of ignorance, or you've never trained them, and you need to be much more compassionate and patient with them in that situation. It's after they know and they continue to be defiant that I think the discipline ought to ratchet up. Discipline has to keep in mind the age of the child, their knowledge or understanding of their circumstances, and then also, are they worn out, tired? Are they hungry? Or have they been through something traumatic and it's really high stressful? Because there's many factors that are at play.
So if I say to little 4-year-old Johnny, it's time for you to go to bed,
I want you to go upstairs, pick up all your toys on the stairs, take them, put them away in your toy box, go get your pajamas on and brush your teeth, and I'll be up in 10 minutes to pray with you and put you to bed. 5 minutes goes by and I look over and Johnny's playing on the stairs. Is that defiance and disobedience, or is it weakness? Well, I don't know. I mean, if he sort of does it all the time and he's got this, yeah, make me attitude, well, then maybe I can know it's defiance or disobedience. But if he looks at you and says, I forgot, I think sometimes we should give him the benefit of the doubt.
We've got to give grace. We've got to remember that kids are kids. Their minds are developing, their brains are developing, they're learning. I'm not saying excuse everything. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is there any room at all for you to say, is this childishness and weakness, or is this sin? Let's discipline for sin and instruct and come alongside for childishness and weakness. Repeat all that.
If I had $1 for every time my oldest son said, I forgot. Well, this is going to help you remember.
We'd be rich.
Yeah, we'd be very rich. But it's a very good point to keep in mind that children, yes, we need to discipline, we need to train them, but we also need to let children have room to be children and go through the process of learning a lot of this stuff. Not to stay children, but at least to start as children. And parents, it's our role to give instruction, to discipline, but our kids need us to be also understanding and to start with low expectations. Not what we would for another adult, but realizing they're children. Until we very clearly and very consistently train them in this area, they know the expectation, they've been through it. Okay, at that point, then it's a little bit difference. So they're not starting each day with a lifetime of experiences like we are. Mm-hmm. And so at least we need to keep that in mind as a parent, that we separate childishness from sin, and we take the effort to really try to understand which one it is in that situation, not just react out of frustration. James 1:19 and 20 says, Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce righteousness of God. So we're quick to listen, find out, okay, exactly what happened, listen, hear what's going on, and not immediately act out of anger when it could just be them being a child. And yes, we may need to still train them, but at least to understand where they are.
I actually wrote this verse down and taped it in our kitchen. And anytime and it didn't work at first, but anytime I start to get angry, because obviously it says right in there, anger does no good.
It doesn't, yeah.
So when I get angry or I'm really frustrated, before I try to not discipline first, I'll go in our kitchen and I'll read it like 3 or 4 times, take a couple breaths,
That's good.
and then I'll go back in and try and talk with the kids, and it has helped immensely with how I discipline them.
Very good. Yeah, one other verse, Ecclesiastes 7:9. Be not quick in your spirit to become angry, for anger lodges in the hearts of fools. Don't let it lodge there. We have to remember they are children. They need our patience and guidance, not anger.